Welcome to a very special episode of Banking on Air. My name is Marcel Klimo. I'm one of the two co-hosts of the podcast. It has now been about 18 months since we launched this experiment where we wanted to explore how others built fintechs, financial services, banks. Just wanted to talk about the kind of types of challenges they went through, the problems they encountered. And now, after almost 40 episodes, I wanted to share with you 3 trends that I think really resonated with me as I recorded all of these interviews and mapped them to what we are doing at Vacuumlabs. Because we fundamentally don't want to just be working on yet another bank or yet another app, but we believe we do good work, or in fact great work, when we work on something that is part of a broader trend, something moving the industry towards a better place at some point in the future. So for me, these trends are really 3 basic ones. They're not exhaustive. There's obviously many things happening in the fintech and banking space, but these are the 3 that resonate with me. So first of all, personal identity. Second, embedded finance. And thirdly, privacy. So let me start off with the first one, personal identity. I truly believe that just like many other industries out there, understanding your customer deeply, personally, is very important. And banks, especially neobanks, have been promoting this as a model for establishing new neobanks by saying, oh, we provide personalization, we provide custom experience that is tailored to your own personal behaviors. But it has only been possible over the past few years to really do this properly and introduce either AI or machine learning or basically the technology to better understand your behavior and to provide actionable insights, actionable steps to take that improve your financial life. And there are some cool projects that we're working on that I don't want to share yet. But I'm really proud of the work we've done, for example, on Mox in Hong Kong. For those of you who haven't heard of it, I definitely recommend our conversation with Dennis, the CEO of Mox, who talks about how they managed to establish a virtual bank in Hong Kong, sponsored by Standard Chartered Bank, but also by other partners, and how they really wanted to build a bank that was personal for people who really want to not only feel that the money is a burden on them, but rather to enjoy their life and to enjoy their life in a way that makes them feel like they're in control of their money. And I think for banks to truly project a personal identity, they really need to partner with other players in the industry like Mox did when they partnered with a local travel player and a telecom to really provide the experiences and the discounts, and eventually over the past year even launch a credit product and many others. So I definitely encourage you to listen to that conversation about how they're trying to make banking more personal. And on top of that, it's not only about enabling people to feel like their transactions mean something to them, but they need to also understand how the transactions impact the world around them. And there I definitely recommend our conversations with Duconomy, quite an interesting startup or company from Scandinavia, which is really trying to understand how the spending you do every single day impacts the environment around you, how the purchases you make every day impact your carbon footprint. They've built technology to help support that, and even a financial product that helps you limit certain behaviors that might be adverse to the environment around you. So these 2 are just 2 examples of how personal identity really comes in as an important aspect of building new technology in the fintech space. And lastly, I think I definitely have to mention Daylight. Daylight is an LGBTQ plus focused platform or bank in the United States, which we helped co-launch last year in 2020 to really empower individuals from a minority group to really get a new feel for what a very personalized or hyper-personalized bank could and should look like in the future. So definitely check out Daylight at joindaylight.com to see more of that. The second broader trend that I see is really around embedded finance. And really the first time I think that this was mentioned to me with that name was by Brad from Cladara. Cladara is one of our clients. And what Cladara enables businesses to do is to manage their SaaS products in a very simple user interface that helps them manage all of their subscriptions in one UI and really take care of everything that they subscribe to in a way that is very individualized to that particular subscription. So let me explain how that works. You sign up and you create cards to pay for all your subscriptions, and then each one of those cards really plays a role in your own ability to limit how much money gets sent to that SaaS provider, and helps you manage how much you're spending so that you can increase and decrease your limits as you spend along all of your purchases. The reason why this is so unique and why it's part of embedded finance is because they are running on top of an existing banking as a service provider that really enabled them to launch very quickly. In fact, it only took about 7 weeks for us to launch. And now last year they announced, I think, their second or third round with 3.4 million raised and more coming on the way. So I'm really proud of what the team has been able to do and how Christina, the founder of Cladara, has really driven the vision of using this sort of embedded finance capability to drive a completely new type of product with players like Railsbank, Solaris, Trezor, and many others around Europe and around the world, like Marqeta, for example, in the United States. We're seeing the ability for companies and startups to start providing financial services to their customers and clients without the need for regulatory or other complex activities. They can get straight to helping out their customers. So really being able to embed financial services into your daily experience as a person living in the 21st century is now much more possible than ever before. And if we look at another example of this, which a lot of people are talking about, but I still believe is part of embedded finance, and is buy now, pay later. We've seen players like Klarna, we've seen others like Zip in Australia, who have fairly successfully been able to really convert this idea of spending on credit or getting a loan into a very seamless process that enables you to purchase something that you pay back fairly quickly, but at the same time, they really remove a lot of the barriers to making that purchase. So they very much embed a financial product, what it would traditionally be known as a loan, and they embed that in the purchasing flow of an e-commerce website or something else like that. So I already mentioned some from around the world, but I'd like to also point you to my conversation with Michal Schmida of Twisto. Again, Twisto is one of our clients and they provide buy now, pay later services in Central Europe. And they've recently announced that they've managed to get a major investment and eventually an acquiring offer from Zip, which is one of the Australian players. And we're happy to support them continually on that journey as they continue to grow within Europe. However, I really feel that as we move into the 21st century, we're going to see more and more products include financial services within their functionality. And I'm super happy that we now have players like Railsbank, which I mentioned earlier, that enable people to launch on top of them very quickly instead of focusing on a lot of paperwork. That's the second one, embedded finance. I really believe that's something that will play a major role and something that we're going to pay attention to in the future as well. And finally, the third trend, privacy. As we grow and see more and more data gathered in the 21st century, a lot of people are worried about privacy. Whether it is social networks or it is their transactional data, understanding the fact that this is still my data and I should be able to do what I want to do with it instead of having other players play around with it is a hot topic for many people, and regulators throughout the world are trying to understand the best ways to provide the privacy that people need in their lives to feel comfortable with what they're doing and to not feel like they're constantly being tracked. At the same time, governments and regulators around the world are also understanding that security and understanding money flows as they move around the world is something that's important to them to prevent crime or to eliminate fraud. So it is always a balancing game, and over the past few years, we've seen a lot of trust or a lot of belief put into cryptocurrencies on the blockchain or on blockchains. And we've played a role in that. We've created one of the largest wallets for ADA, which is one of the top 4, 5, 6 cryptocurrencies out there in the world, which provides users with I mean, historically unparalleled levels of anonymity and privacy. We shall see how the world's governments and regulators will react to cryptocurrencies in the coming years, but I truly believe that privacy is a fundamental value that we hold dear, and as individuals we want to feel like if I want to share my data, I will do so, but I don't want it to be abused or overused. And this has been a topic throughout a lot of the conversations in the past year and a half in many of these podcasts. We can talk about privacy from many different angles, but I truly think this will be something that will be explored heavily in the coming years, and I look forward to working on many interesting projects. In fact, some that are already in the works that, again, I cannot talk about, but it's a really exciting world to be in right now. So it has been a very, very interesting journey over the past 18 months. We've seen tremendous success for our clients and really, really happy about. And with partners like Thought Machine and others, we're seeing really, really massive demand for interesting services, interesting products, interesting things that are built around personal identity that lean heavily into embedded finance and that still preserve a strong layer of privacy for the end users to really drive how fintechs and banking moves forward over the next decade. At this point, I really encourage you to go back and go through the almost 40 episodes that we've produced over the past year and a half. And if there's anything that interests you, definitely jump in, reach out to me, reach out to us if you're interested in any part of this. We're still working on what this podcast will look like after this initial season, if you want to call it that. But I really want to thank all of you, especially those who have stuck through months and months of listening to this podcast and really giving us feedback and encouraging us on the journey. I'd like to thank my co-host, Helen Panzerino, and also David Stantel, who is now producing the Crypto on Air podcast, which I also encourage you to listen to. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you soon.